It's showtime. Welcome to CPG Vibes. What are we at? 188, pushing towards 200 each and every week. Gavin, what's up?
Not too much, my man. I am doing good, feeling good. Looking forward to this conversation with Jonathan. Him and I go back, I guess, over a little over 10 years is when we were first introduced to each other in June of 2015 at Fresh Thyme. So I'm particularly excited about this conversation. Wade, how was your week?
Good, good. Busy. It's just a lot of moving pieces. I'm ready for the weekend. I think we've seen like 3 seasons here. Gavin and I live about an hour and a half or so away from each other, and it's been we saw freezing temperatures this week. Started the week, not ended last weekend at the beach, pushing 80 degrees, and we literally hit below freezing a couple days this week. So it's been a
A
mess.
high, or sorry, I woke up one of the mornings with the kids and it was 28 degrees outside, frost on the windshields, and got that early South Carolina winter for a hot second.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Was Gavin mentioned our guest this week is Jonathan Lawrence, currently with Advantage Solutions. We're going to bring him on in a second. I want to welcome everyone. I see Jeff, Kenny, Melissa, everybody that's joining us. If you haven't tuned in before, please put your comments in the chat. We'll get to them if they're questions, comments with regards to conversations we're having. And also, if you haven't already, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all the above. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, whatever it is, buttons you have to hit. Do that. Leave a review. All positive, of course. But if you could do that, that would help us out. Anything I missed, Gavin, before we bring in Jonathan?
Now let's do it.
Let's do it.
Hey,
Welcome, Jonathan. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Right on, right on. Gavin, you want to start?
Jonathan, just give us a quick background. Obviously, you have extensive knowledge on the retail side. Walk us through your last 15 years plus,
Yeah,
uh, and then we'll
Day
kick off
by
from there.
day, day by day, the last 15.
sure. So yesterday, I woke up. No, yeah. So I've been in the industry my whole life. I'm really passionate about the natural foods industry. I was fortunate enough to kind of be brought up in it. Going way back, my family had health food stores in Arizona. We had a 13 store chain called Arizona Health Foods. So that was really where I learned the business. Similar to how people say they started in grocery, they were bagging. Well, I was doing that in a health food store. I graduated to the register, and then at some point got into the office. So right around in college, I thought that's just what I was going to do. My grandfather told me my junior year when I was at ASU that we were selling the family business. At the time, my major was sociology. So I was like, what am I going to do now? And then, that kind of transferred into being a startup. So my uncle and I took one of our private label brands that we had and went into sports nutrition. We had a couple brands, Manos Pro Fitness, Sports Nutrition Technologies, Nitro Fusion, which was a plant-based protein, and then realized we were trying to sell a plant-based product to a sports nutrition crowd. So that graduated into Plant Fusion, which is still out there today. Then after that, went to Sunflower Farmers Market. Got my start there as a merchandiser, and then category manager eventually. And then obviously Sprouts acquired Sunflower. So I was a category manager for vitamins at Sprouts for about 2 years. And then got the opportunity to start something brand new at Fresh Thyme. So I was at Fresh Thyme about 12 years, started as director of natural living, then went into more of a center store type role. And then before I left, I was VP of all merchandising. So great opportunity to learn the fresh side of the business, which was a lot different. Had a great team there. And then about 5 months ago, it was just time for a change. The company was in a great place. The leadership team underneath me was fantastic and ready to step up. So I felt like I've done my job. I could walk away knowing they're in a great place. And looking at my career, I thought, what are some blind spots that I have? And one of them was on the broker side. And so the opportunity came up. And so now I'm leading natural specialty for Advantage Solutions. I'm having a lot of fun. It's kind of fun to be the new guy that knows a lot about the industry, but doesn't know much about, the larger organization. And I've been blessed that I have an amazing team that has a lot of passion and experience. to kind of help me as I transition over, and we kind of bring in some key players to the team and having a lot of fun. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, I know for like me, I would go from seeing you like once a year after I left Fresh Thyme, and it'd always be at like Expo West, right?
Sure.
Maybe a trade show after that, but I feel like I've seen you 3 or 4 times this year. Saw you at SproutsCon, saw you at Unify,
Mhm.
one of the shows there. So, really cool to interact with you on this side. I want to back up a little bit and let's talk about your Sunflower days. How many stores did Sunflower have? And then simultaneously, right after that, Sprouts, not the behemoth that they are today, but talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah. So Sunflower and Sprouts both started in Phoenix right around the same time. So that farmers market concept that like Henry's and Boney's and others had really done well with. And so I started as a regional merchandiser, and so that was kind of like a regional manager. I had Arizona, Vegas, and a little bit of California as we started to expand. And it was a lot of fun. Then, right when my first child, so Cooper, was born, it's like, I was trying to not be on the road so much. And the opportunity to be a category manager came up. I jumped at it and had a lot of fun. I loved being a category manager. It is such a fun job where you own your business. You get to determine your assortment. You get to launch new products, be a part of their success. And so when I was there, I think we had like 35 stores and we were growing pretty quickly. And then one day, you'd hear, brokers or brands come in like, oh, I heard Sprouts is going to buy you. I'm like, no, they're not. We just moved into this brand new office. There's no way. A week later, found out that we were being acquired. And it was actually at first I was like, they're a competitor, and it's awkward when someone comes in and acquires you. And it was tough at first, but went over to Sprouts. I think at the time we had about 170 stores. Got to work for Diana Lucas, who was amazing. That's coming off of working for Joanne Baker at Sunflower. So a lot of great leaders I've got to work with. So it was definitely a step up, when you go from 35 stores to 170. And then simultaneously, that was when Henry's and Sprouts kind of came together. So every category review, I'm aligning the same assortment across 3 or 4 banners. So something as simple as like a mineral set, you're looking at, movement on like 600 or 700 items. And so it was tough because every store had a different customer base and they had the assortment that they had. And you're coming in and saying, no, like we're going to have, this is the 120 SKUs we're going to have in that category. So it was tough. Every category review, there's a lot to go through. But once you got it aligned and it was the right assortment and it was across all banners, it felt really good. So
Yeah, so you go from 35 stores to like 170 to maybe 200 after the acquisition, and then you're there a couple years, and then you move on to a store that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I've
So
heard
that
this
was,
story 100 times or maybe 1,000 times.
yeah, no, I've been blessed to be able to do that. Right. So, it was right after Sprouts went public, and it's like, hey, I'm at the fastest growing natural retailer in the country. I'm leading supplements. How is this not like why would you leave this? And having to work with amazing people at Sprouts, the part of it to me was it's already established. Like I can make an impact, but I'm a cog in the wheel. And I think just seeing my family kind of be entrepreneurs and starting things on their own. I always worked for great people. I wanted to kind of see like, well, what would happen if you didn't have all these leaders and great people to fall back on, where it's on your shoulders. And there was just something about it that I just wanted to take that on. And again, you don't do anything alone in this. But if it failed or succeeded, it was based on your leadership, and like that, I just couldn't pass up. And obviously, it meant moving from Phoenix to outside of Chicago. We were the first really in our family to move, so it was definitely different. But it was worth it. And one thing I found was if I'm with my family, meaning my wife, Kara, my son Cooper, and my daughter Karina, I'm home. And so that kind of gave us confidence that, hey, this is the right place for us now, but we can go anywhere. And I'm sure you guys have moved around a lot too.
Right. Well, you talk about leadership, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Kenny, who obviously worked underneath you. And Kenny says, when I think about leadership, Jonathan comes to top of mind. His evolution and journey is inspirational. His influence extends broadly throughout the industry. So obviously left a lasting impact on Kenny. And I'm going to let you speak to that here in a second. Kenny asked if Gavin, you have the squat rack. Jonathan has Peloton. What do I have? I have, and I told these guys I would do this. I have a Tiz, which is a tangerine vanilla cream fizz. So that's what I have, Kenny. Cheers. Jonathan, if you want to speak to Kenny's comment, or I know you think the world of Kenny, just like
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Debatable.
Yeah, leadership is something that I kind of grew into. I wouldn't, I think when you think of leadership, you think of like that kind of alpha mentality. And I've got some friends that are just born leaders. I wouldn't put myself in that category. I'm not a born leader. I like people. I think I understand people. And I think you get the ability to work for leaders throughout your life. And if you're doing it right, you're understanding what are some things that you want to take away that impacted you in a good way, and what are some things that maybe you would do differently. And so it's kind of that journey of taking pieces from all of them and then getting comfortable in your own skin. I'm not someone that's going to yell at people. I probably trust too much, but I like that. I'm comfortable with that. I like to find really great people, invest time in them, trust them, and give them the resources to be successful. I also got comfortable with surrounding myself with people that are better and smarter than me. And once you kind of understand that, and your ego goes away, that unlocks your ability to truly be, I think, a good leader. And then you're investing your time into their success, and it all just builds on itself. And I think every leader goes through a journey of feeling like they're an imposter, right? So you fake it till you make it kind of mentality. And every time I moved up, I felt like that. And then you get to a certain age or certain point in your life where you just become comfortable in who you are and how you lead. And that's an important place, because then you're not trying to be something different, and you're only getting better at who you are and what you do. So like with Kenny, when he came on, he had been in some tough places to work, it's like a conventional world. And I'm sure he appreciates me talking about him, but what I saw in him was just an amazing person who was really polished and passionate. And all I did was just tell him to be himself and show up with who Kenny is. And that's what I try to do with all my team. Is I don't want you to be something different. I want you to continue to get better. But it takes all types of personalities and people. And I think for us to truly build great teams, and that was it. That was all I did. That's all the credit I can take with Kenny, is I just told him to be himself.
Jonathan, you just talked about like a pivotal moment that happens in leadership, and when you arrived at that moment, what moment was that for you?
I would say it was probably in the last 2 years. So at Fresh Thyme, I was senior director of center store, and then got promoted to vice president of center store. And that's where I started to kind of, feel that. But it wasn't till when I was over all merchandising and I was over Fresh, and I knew I didn't know Fresh. Like, I'm not going to come in and be able to understand the ins and outs necessarily. I mean, I understand category management and I understand people. And I just saw that my team was thriving underneath me. So like Kenny and Kristen and that group, they were doing incredibly well. And I thought, okay, if that's what I'm responsible for, and it's how I lead, and I've got the right people doing amazing things, then I'm not going to do anything different. And that's kind of the point to where just became very comfortable with what I'm good at, but I also definitely know my opportunities, and you hire your opportunities. So I'm not extremely well organized. So, get some people that are well organized around you. And there's a lot of different things I could go on as far as all the opportunities I have. But at the end of the day, I love what I do. I love the people that I get to work with. I want them to be successful. And, when you're the leader, you make the decisions. And so you're fully responsible, and you take, if something goes wrong, you jump on that. You are the one that's responsible. When something goes right, you're the first to praise your team for what they did, because ultimately they made it happen. So.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome on the retail side. Like I obviously got to see it firsthand. I know I feel like you're being quite humble. I know you guys you guys were a team. You know, Matt, Erica, your squad over there, like you guys had these family things. I don't know if it was once a week or whatever. I tried to poach in on it. I made salmon for us once.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
you guys did a great job. It was a lot of team bonding stuff, a lot of team dinners. Especially we guys went out. And I also know that you were very empathetic towards a lot of these people's situations and what challenges they were going on personally, but then professionally as well. And that's something that I feel like is lost a lot in today's leadership, is not taking the time to understand your people.
Mm,
Because if you understand your people, you're going to get more out of them more than likely.
sure. Yeah. And you got to realize, like, like everything that they're doing, and you don't always know what they're doing, right? But it does. Like in my situation today, I again, I'm the new guy. Um, and Advantage is a great company, and it's huge. And so I'm learning every day all the different elements that we can, or how we can support businesses and retailers and clients, and it's tough. It's tough to go from being the guy that been there, 12 years, employee number 11, and where you can help anyone, who to go to a position where you're kind of like, who, like the first few weeks, every person I would talk to, I'd say, don't take this the wrong way, but who are you and what do you do? Because everyone's titles are very similar, but they're very complex and different. And so it was that uncomfortableness of not really knowing what to do, but knowing that I've got a great team underneath me that is that same thing I had at Fresh Thyme, that's doing the right things every day, to where you don't have to be so worried of like, oh, well, what's going on with this client, this retailer, and when do it? No, they've got it, and if they need anything, they know they can reach out.
Nice. We have a couple comments here. I'm going to bring up. Phaedra says, "Advantage is lucky to have you. Your FDM team is amazing." Kenny, spot on. I'm most comfortable I have been in my leadership because of Jonathan. Why? Because I realize if I'm true to myself, you can never go wrong. Jonathan taught me that. I often would compare myself to others in the past, and while it's good to learn from others, ultimately you have to trust and embrace yourself. Good stuff. I wanted to touch on, you coming from a center store background, and then when you added on that responsibility of the fresh side. I always talk about an experience when I was a leader early on in my career, right? And I'm younger and constantly having to be supervising people that were older than me,
Mm-hmm.
and the adjustments and the challenges involved there. Did you face any of that? And I'm not trying to throw anybody specific under the bus with, these perishable teams, but I also know my experience with perishables is that oftentimes those guys are pretty hardcore as far as,
Mm-hmm.
the meat guys and the meat guys and the produce of the produce guys. And here comes this center store guy, and now he's over us. How was that transition? Any challenges or any thoughts you can share with us as far as how you adjusted to that added responsibility?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of challenges. It's kind of like, where do you start? How do you go from, you're kind of a well-oiled machine on one side, and you've got the majority of things figured out, and you're building your business, and then you bring in this total other side that is very complex and is dealing a lot more with labor and um, uh,
Shrink.
Shrink. Oh my God, Shrink. I'm so happy to not talk about Shrink. Can I tell you that? Like, it is so, like, Shrink and margin. Like, I don't say every day, but um, what what really worked, and what I found out was just like, and this happens in a lot of companies, is everyone's siloed. And so, yeah, the meat guy is the meat guy because he said he's the meat guy, and they're not, they're managing everything on their own. Same thing with produce or deli bakery. Where they began to thrive again was just bringing them together. So when it went under one team, meaning like I was the leader over all that, we just brought everyone together. They already knew each other. They already had great relationships, but how are they planning the ads well together? How are when we're thinking about merchandising, are we merchandising just our little space, or are we thinking about the full store? Because a customer doesn't care who owns what space when they're walking through. So in just inviting the Fresh and the Center Store teams to work together, to plan together, to hang out together, that's where everything kind of fell in place. And I mean, it's not to say it solved everything. Grocery's hard, but that was what was cool, was the teams were working together in a way that they hadn't done before, and that unlocked a ton of things.
Yeah, I'm just going back to my days there, and we had the tortilla conversations.
Yeah.
Who owns tortillas? I had I had refrigerated, I had frozen tortillas. Zoran had shelf stable tortillas. Misha had tortillas. I stole cheese. Like I wanted to put cheese shreds in the dairy case because all of our competitors were. And if we had that leadership then, I think we could have solved a lot of those headaches. But again, like I was very selfish and was thinking about my category and how I could grow it.
Yeah, and that's if it's all based on individual P&Ls, then that's going to shape the behavior, right? It's easy to say one team, but when it comes down to it, if I'm saying you're responsible for, hey, Gavin, you've got dairy and you need to hit this budget for sales and you need to hit this margin, you're going to do everything you can to hit that because you're responsible and you're held accountable to it. But you're going to make decisions that are right for your category that aren't right for the store. And so that's where, like, thought it was, it was great to be in that position because there wasn't one lead over Center Store and one lead over Fresh. It was one person that's over merchandising that's able to see, like, hey, we're going to move this over here, and yeah, you're going to take a hit in this category, but the store is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, that's going to be better for the customer. And so when you get out of your way and stop thinking about what's just right for you and you think about the customer, and this translates also over to any business. If you think about what's right for the customer first, then you're going to ultimately make the right decisions, even if they're more difficult. And thanks for bringing up tortillas, by the way. That was the last year at Fresh Thyme. Yes, Kenny, there's still too many tortillas. But it was like you go into most retailers, it's in like 5 or 6 different places. Because if say you're a brand and maybe you don't make it in on a category view with the grocery team. All right, well, I have an opportunity with deli bakery, or I have an opportunity in another department. And it's also like it's dictated of who the manufacturer is, right? So it's the same thing you see like in produce, and if we're talking about like pistachios or nuts, is it bulk? Is it, what is it? But from a customer standpoint, if I see a product that's in 5 different places, I may only see one of those spots. And if I see that you have 1 or 2 selections, then I think you're not in the business of tortillas in this case. Or I see it and I put one in there, and then later on, oh, that's the one I wanted. Then I'm just putting it back on the shelf somewhere. Where if you have it in one spot, there's a destination, you get the best assortment, and then you're going to find out which products are actually worth keeping, and when you put everything together, which one's going to hold the space. So, but yeah, that's goes back to siloed merchandising or siloed thinking, and it's not wrong. It's just they haven't. It takes an evolution to kind of get there and see it from a customer standpoint.
There was a retailer, and this is going back, 15, 20 years ago, and I'm going to butcher the name because I'm going off of memory, and my memory sucks. I want to say it was called Bloom, like Bloom or something. I could be wrong about it, but the concept was kind of like going off of what you said, these silos, right? I always call it politics, this environment at store level, but the concept is. Yeah, the tortilla category managers, it doesn't matter where it's merchandised in the store. They're the tortilla category manager. So if it's in produce, if it's in dairy, deli, grocery, it's there. And there's no real estate that is, this is produce, this is meat, this is grocery. Can you imagine a world where that actually would happen, where pistachios, I don't care where they're merchandised in the store, they're this person's responsibility, as opposed to if they're in a can, it's grocery, if it's in a bag, it's produce, and so on and so forth. So it's I don't know. I don't know if that'll ever happen. I don't know if the silos, we always, as leaders, and believe me, over the years I've had these same conversations. But if they got this product in front of produce first, it was going in produce. It didn't matter if it belonged in grocery or not. I don't know if that'll ever change.
That's gonna be a tough one. That exists everywhere.
It does.
And again, like if you can tie up to kind of one lead where you're thinking about just merchandising the customer, then you could have those tough conversations. But there's a lot of cases too where one department may not even know that this product or similar product is carried throughout the store, because they may not get through the whole store. They may be so focused on their area that sometimes you have to, if you really want to know yourself, you have to be your own customer. And so you've got to know the assortment that is throughout the store and not just what you carry. And so we'd have to have those conversations of like, hey, why are you bringing in a prebiotic soda in this category when there's already a set over here? Like, I hate to take it from, but if it's the right product, then it needs to go in this department and it's under this person. And so, that's where you're able to kind of get in front of those things. But there's so much to unwrap to get there. And people have to be open, and people have to understand, again, what's right for the customer needs to be our first focus no matter what.
This is a good question from Melissa. You kind of answered it a little bit ago, but just refreshing it. Transitioning to fresh has to be challenging in fresh, bulk, and deli, catering and prepared. How was that experience overall?
So it was tough because there was a lot of transition in leadership in that department. And everyone wants to do something amazing in prepared food. Like you want to create something where you're excited to go eat there. And but you don't always, especially if you don't have the background in it, you don't understand the labor and the shrink that goes into it. In fresh, there's going to be shrink, and shrink is good in a lot of cases. A certain amount is. But you have to figure out, like, what are you going to be good at? And what I was looking at for every department was like, what was going to be your signature product, right? So, like an easy one, going back to Fresh Thyme and some others, is like the bulk peanut butter, right? So it's amazing. If you haven't had it, you should try it. And that's something that customers are going to come back specifically for. And so that's a signature item. Fresh Thyme is developing signature items, also specifically in deli bakery, and they're doing a fantastic job. And it's like exciting to see what they're doing. They've made a lot of progress. But that was tough, was trying to figure out like, what is the signature item? What do customers come to a certain retailer for, or could only get? Because you can't be the best at everything. So you really have to figure out like, what are you going to over invest in to have an amazing product. It's just like a store I love going to is like Central Market. It's around every corner you're seeing something that's incredible and amazing. And it's similar to like Whole Foods kind of started that, but like when they're making like fresh tortillas, and sorry to stay on tortillas again, but like it smells incredible. Like you have to make a lot, so you better be good and you better have customers for it. But you can see they really invested in that. And so every store and every retailer, you're going to find out like what is their signature item that they do incredibly well at, or better than others. And some of it might be customer service, some of it might be delivery, some of it might be pickup. You got to figure out what is your niche.
Yeah, and some, it's like down here. Publix is amazing at customer service and operations, right? Like they run very clean stores, and their customer service is top notch for retail. They preach that. So anytime you go into a Publix, like you're going to get two things: a really clean store and excellent customer service and great in-stock conditions.
Yeah, and apparently a pub sub, which I haven't had yet, but I know
they do a great job with subs. Absolutely.
It's good enough to where I've heard of it. And next time around I'm going to pick one up. But again, that's a signature item that people they've created a market for.
Yep, absolutely. So we kind of talked about you just getting to Fresh Thyme and there was this concept. There was no physical stores. Talk to us about how your leadership evolved from that point to getting to 40, 50 stores, to getting to your VP level, and now your VP level now with 7 to 10 direct reports.
Yeah, so like I would say it was an easy transition for me and how it was created, because like I went from category manager to director. It's like, yes, I'm the leader of 0 stores. And I hired Erica Cutts. Erica did body care. She knew that was kind of not my strength, and I did the vitamins. So I set up every single item. I did every promotion.
And like, just stop there for a second. You set up every item.
Every item.
This is 2013, 14 ish.
Yep.
How long did that take you?
Months. And it was very much like this. I had my headphones on, I'm listening to music, and I'm just setting up items.
Just an absolute grueling process for anybody out there.
And pricing it at the same time, right? Yep. So looking at what is my margin. But so it was great. It was like my version of like I walked to school in the snow uphill both ways kind of thing. Like, so if there's anyone ever complaining, it was like, I set up every item, you know, and you had all the meetings with all the brands. And what was great was it's all about relationships too, especially with the retailer, broker, vendor community, because they believed in what we were doing, and they came to the table with great pricing. So it wasn't like they looked at us as we're a 0 store chain. They saw what we were going to do, and they invested in us, and they worked with us. They partnered, and those relationships carried through, and it was fantastic. And we had so much support from the vendor community in opening stores and setting stores and running great promotions. And that's what's fun about what I get to do today is as you move up, you get further and further and further away from that working with brands and doing category reviews, figuring out how to be the best price or run the hottest promotion to like make every other retailer like, what are they doing over there? You know, like you want to win. It's a great mentality. But as you move up, it becomes more about strategy and people. And so now I get to work with brands again. Now I get to work with a team that manages a portfolio of clients and gets to work with every single retailer in natural. And that's so much fun because now I get to, I travel a good amount, and I'm going to see, I see so many people at shows now because I go to like every one. But when I sit with a retailer, I get to understand like what is their strategy. And it's very similar across the board, by the way. But how they go to market, who their people are, and that's a lot of fun. And you can relate to them because you sat in that seat. And so now where I can help advantage and on this side is I know what it's like to be in their shoes. I know what they're looking for. I know how we can bring true solutions to them and help them grow their business. And from a client standpoint, when you understand the retailer, then you can help the client understand how to go to market. So, hey, this is how we're going to pitch it. This is what, if we want to get into this retailer, this is what we have to do. This is the opportunity we have. And so you're almost a fixer. You get to make it work. And it's actually a lot of fun. It's a broker job. I mean, I think they said you have none of the power and all the responsibility. Check. Yep. Got that. Probably won't be staying at the Hilton or the Marriott at Expo. I'm going to be walking like a mile and a half like everyone else. So there goes the perks that I had. And it was my first call when I took this job was Milt Zimmerman over at Presence. And I was like, Milt, I need you to teach me how to be a broker. And, he always gives great advice. I love talking to Milt. And he said, everything, everywhere to everybody. And so I was like, okay, all right. I think I get it now. It's going to be tough, but it's been so much fun. It's fun to get to do what I do now. And again, work with an amazing team and see the business from this side. and then work closer with a lot of our clients to help them be successful.
So I want to dig into the broker side. We spent about half the episode talking about the the retail side, but before we transition over, I want to ask, philosophically, when you talk about both hats that you've worn now, the retail hat and now the broker hat, talk a little bit about the relationships with the brands and vendors you've worked with, and the differences, right? I mean, because it's different. I've obviously done it myself now in the last 2 years. So, and much for the same reason that I was removed from dealing with brands, and now I'm back in the thick of it, which is awesome. But talk a little bit your experience on the retail side with brands, and now how do things look on this side?
Yeah. So when you're on the retail side, everyone's bringing everything to you. And you're the one that when you do have time, you respond back. And you have a lot of the power. Now you can't be successful without partnering with the brands and it being equal. Because if there's no brands, you have nothing to sell. And especially in this industry too, we're going to sit on multiple sides of the table throughout our career. And if you do it right, you'll be successful and you'll have those relationships and you'll still have those friends and you'll still have those people you can call when you have a question or need a favor. But if you don't, if you start to buy into you're smarter than everyone else and, you've got all this power, it's going to hit you on your butt when you go out and try to do something different and you don't have all those connections and people supporting you and you find out that you treated people really poorly and they're not going to bend over backwards for you, especially if you're not dollar signs to them anymore, right? From a buyer standpoint, you have to realize, it sucks because you have to say no like 9 times out of 10, but you need to do it in a professional way. And if you have the ability, give them feedback and so they can be better. And it's uncomfortable, but it's the right thing to do. On this side, there's a lot of expectations you have because at the end of the day, they're paying me money to help them be successful. And there's an expectation that comes with that. And I think when we take on clients, we need to also be sure that we can be successful or that we do have a strategy to help and support them. Because the last thing I want to do is take anyone's money and not perform and it to be a waste. And for a lot of brands, especially like emerging and startup, they don't have a lot to work with. So they have to be very smart and responsible in their spend. And you have to understand that. So it's fun on this side because, I get to be a part of their journey. I get to be a part of their success. But I'm not 100% responsible of saying yes or no. Right. And that's a little bit of weight off your shoulders. But when you see and you're a part of their success, you see them grow and you partner with great people, dude, it's so much fun. It's fun when you get to be a part of that success and that you get to be a lot of it on the retail side too, in being maybe the first buyer that brought them in or helping them grow. But this, you get to get a lot deeper. You get to come back and say, hey, let's talk about your packaging, or there's certain attributes you're missing that these, retailers are definitely looking for. How can we get ahead of that? So it's just more in depth in that relationship.
So I got one follow-up question, Gavin. I know you got one, but I've got to ask this because I just have to. With what you just said, no one likes being told their baby's ugly. Have you had any situations without throwing anybody under the bus where you've had to tell a client or a brand that you work with, hey, your baby's a little ugly, and how was that first conversation? Because again, they have to grin and bear it when you're the retailer, kind of, sort of, but when you're the broker, they're paying you, and now you're telling their baby's ugly. How did that first conversation go?
Yeah. I think what's easier for me was that I could say like, hey, I've seen it, thousands of products come across, and I think I have a good idea of what can be successful. And also I've been wrong. So, there's products I've seen that, or even the ones, there's one we have today that I think the packaging, I don't like it, but you know what? It's killing it. So it's almost like you have to be comfortable with, like, you can give your advice and based on your experience, but you also have to be open to like, hey, you know what? Sometimes you're wrong, and if it's working, roll with it, and try to help over time. So it's like, hey, we're doing really well. Do you think it's time to relook at the packaging or maybe the labeling? And this is kind of how it can be improved upon because packaging is so important. Going back to trade shows as in my role, I'm not the person to go stop and talk to brands because I'm not the decision maker. And I don't want them wasting their time on me. I can connect them, but I also don't want them to feel like, oh, Jonathan liked it. Okay, well, Jonathan's not the category manager. But what I would do is I'd walk quickly through each. I try to cover as much of the show as I could. And a lot of times I'd have like one AirPod in with music because there's just so many people. It like helps me with the chaos. But I'd walk and I'd kind of keep straight forward and I wouldn't make eye contact because once you make eye contact, then you get pulled in. But I'd look out of my periffs, and if I saw something that stood out, I would stop and I'd go check out the product and I'd take a picture and I send it to the team. Because if that product stood out to me in that moment, that means it's going to stand out on the shelf and it's going to, draw a customer in to drive that trial. Because everyone shops, they have the same things they're buying pretty much every day. 80% of what you buy at the grocery store on a weekly basis is pretty much a repeat purchase. And we have so many like innovative, unique brands. It's like, how are you going to jump off the shelf to where you weren't on that person's list, especially today when money gets tighter? How are you going to jump off that shelf? And packaging is a big deal. You have to be able to invest in that, or you've been around so long that your packaging, while not amazing, is iconic, and then you don't touch it.
Yeah, I think when I think of that specifically, I think of GT's kombucha. I don't think they've changed if they've had updates, it's very modest updates.
Yeah, and there's no need, like if people know what the brand looks like, it's the same thing like Bronner's, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if no one would create packaging today that looked like Bronner soap, but you know what? It's incredible.
Yep.
And it was a pioneer, and you should never change it.
Yep, exactly. And it's something that customers are looking for. They know that they want it. They're going right to the shelf. They're not looking at anything else. This is a question for both you guys because I actually am very genuinely interested in this. Obviously, on the retail side, we've all been category managers and probably very good ones at that. But with that being said, how for both you guys on the broker side, how do you look at underperforming brands? Like, do you guys do something similar to a category review where it's like, hey, we have to analyze this after a year. We're re-signing you or not re-signing you?
Well, Wade, I've only been doing this for 5 months, so I'll let you go first.
Well, I think for us, our kind of mythology is to have a quarterly review, and in that review, we're setting goals, right? And so quarter to quarter, you're evaluating what those goals are, and did you accomplish them? Do you need to change them, and so on and so forth. So I think that's just kind of the general process, and I can pass the buck too because I'm kind of relatively new. I've just been in a year and a half, but setting those goals and making sure they're realistic, right? I mean, if you set goals that are unrealistic and don't accomplish them, well, it's just kind of like spitting in the wind, right? Or pissing in the wind, whatever you want to say. But but if you are looking at your business, just much like a retailer has a P&L and sets budgets and and things like that. I mean, we've all been there, right? You have these goals and okay, we're going to do 20% cops. We all know we're not going to do 20%. You can set it, but at the end of the day, it's like, so I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's kind of, okay, let's look at the next 3 months of business, what we collaboratively, broker brand want to accomplish together. And let's row in the same direction, and then at the end of that quarter, we're going to look at the next quarter. We're going to do the same thing, but I think you have to take it off in bite-sized pieces because, it makes it more digestible. And I think that's what makes sense. I don't know, Jonathan, again, you being new, maybe you haven't had that experience yet, but I'd be
a little bit.
Yeah.
So to me, it comes down to two different scenarios of where I think it would make sense to part ways. One is when a brand's just not listening to you. And, our success is their success, and their success is our success. And our responsibility is that we've got to have a great relationship with the retailers, and we have to be a part of that client's team. We need to own it, right? And when you just know how to be successful, and you're essentially giving the answers to the test, and they're fighting and fighting and fighting against it because no, that's not what we do. Okay, so then what value can I add to this relationship if we're just filling out forms? That's you don't need us. You need AI. So that's one scenario where it gets frustrating, and then you just feel like, okay, you don't need us. And we're, by the way, brokers are people too. I want to put that out there. Like, we have feelings, and I say that like I've been it my entire life, right? 5 months, but everyone wants to do well, and everyone's trying really, really hard, and especially in this industry, everyone cares, so I think that's important just to point out. The other scenario is where we did everything that we could, and it's just not it's not getting there. And it doesn't mean it's not, it's the product or anything else. It's like, if we've exhausted all our resources and we're not moving the needle, then I don't want to take your money. Because like, if you're, depending on what role you play within our team or other teams on the broker side, there does come a time where you have to say, okay, we've done everything that has been successful in the past. It's not working. All right, well then try something new, right? Like, there's not one way, but if you've done everything you physically can to help that brand's success, you're not moving the needle, then I would tell the brand, like, hey, they go try someone completely different. Maybe they have a different way of doing things, because we want them to be successful, even if they're not successful with us. But I think that those are two different scenarios where I think you have to have that tough conversation and just say, like, I don't think this isn't mutually beneficial anymore. And if I can't add value, then I'd love for you to go try someone else. There's a lot of good brokers. There's a lot of good people out there. Maybe they jive a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's this is bringing back some brand Arctica things that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where it's like, hey, if you're paying me and you're not listening to me, like, that's kind of an issue, like, you're paying the expert and you're not listening to the expert's advice. And I think that's obviously deserving of a breakup for sure. Especially if it's going to get contentious or anything like that, or if they're going to be blaming you. I always say this too. We're all people, like, yes, you're a broker, and but there also needs to be a lot of self-reflection. So it's not, brokers are typically going to go out there and do the job, do their job. And if they get told no and no and no and no, and maybe you need to understand what that no is telling you. If it's
Yeah.
packaging, if it's taste, if it's price point, you need to listen.
Yeah.
One of the other things that you talked about with Erica at Fresh Thyme was the trust factor. You went through, and I'm just smiling because I had to do the same thing when I was redoing Earth Fair on that second go around. And you have to input every SKU, every line. You have to map out every planogram, and it doesn't just take 5 minutes, man. It takes days upon days upon days. And that was something that I told my category managers once I hired them was, I've done your job. Like, I need you to do what I did better and hire against that. And I wanted to bring this back to Fresh Time a little bit too, because, like, I know for me, like, I would never hire myself. Like, I would never hire someone that's exactly like me, because it's just not going to work.
There's
I
not
need
room in an office for two Gavins.
No, well, that's obvious. But then at the same time, like, just the chaos that, I would come with. Again, I'm dating myself. Like, 10 years ago, Gavin was a lot different. 10 years forward, Gavin's, a little bit more mellowed out. But yeah, like, I know what my strengths and weaknesses are. So I think if you hire against your weaknesses, it's just going to pole vault the company ahead. And I think that's really good. Really good advice is just to trust until you can't, right? If you are going like, I'm just picturing myself in your shoes 5 months ago when you get hired in if the first thing you're doing is questioning what everybody's doing, they're not going to like you.
No, it's kind of scary starting over, right? Like, you work at a certain place so long, everyone so well, and they know you. They can trust you. Um, like starting at Advantage, like they don't know me. They know what I've done, but they don't know me, and so that was why it was really important to like try to get to know them as much as possible. Go out where I can to shows, spend time with them, because I didn't know anything about them either, and but it's been fantastic. Like if I wish I would have seen the level of talent and just give a damn that the team I get to work with has today. But I wasn't exposed to that team because I was on the retail side, right? So you see your rep, and they were good, but you don't get to see everything behind that. And so that's why it's kind of fun now. It's you're when you have such an amazing team like you have at Fresh Thyme, you almost think I can't get that lucky twice, or 3 times or 4 times like I've had in my career. And so you're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? But then you get to know them all better, see what they do. Of course, there's opportunities, and that's what you're here to like develop and grow them. But I was really pleasantly surprised with just the level of talent and care that this team has, especially at a company that's known as being a big company, right? Like Advantage is one of the top 2 largest, maybe top 1 largest in the country, and really known on the conventional side, right? Really well established there. On the natural, it's kind of like it's much smaller, and my goal of coming here was big company, all these resources. How do we focus that and give the team the ability to grow to where we can be a leader in natural? And that's the challenge. That's like the challenge of going to Fresh Thyme, and you're starting from scratch. Well, not starting from scratch here, but we got to change the mentality of what people think about when they think of Advantage. That it is people that are working very closely with brands and that are throughout the U.S. And that know natural, but then have the connectability with the teams that are calling on Publix and Kroger and Costco. And how do you make that alignment work? It's tough. It's a big company. There's a lot of people, but the more we get to know each other and trust, then it's going to be more seamless for the clients. And I'm not just, I didn't come on here to pitch or anything, but I'm just telling you what I think is cool and what the opportunity is that I see, and part of why I came here.
Yeah, it's rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely. All right, we've got Derek joined. Pretty sure I first met Jonathan in 2015 at Vitality Works event in Albuquerque.
We met at the airport actually first, I think, or yes, but that was an incredible event at Vitality Works in New Mexico. It was so much fun, so beautiful. That team's phenomenal, and yeah, I ever since I met Derek there, we've been connecting somewhat regularly.
And we got something from Melissa coming from both sides. Do you agree if you know a product will not deliver long term, is it not better to be honest? I think honesty is better. Refer to a competitor to not let a customer down. I think it goes back to a little bit what you talked about, but any thoughts on that?
It's tough because I can see the good in. That's kind of one of my opportunities is I can see the good in everything. So I may try when I shouldn't, but I go back to like, I've been wrong. So who am I to say that something can't work? I can say maybe a probability if it makes sense. But I think if there's something that I can like latch onto, like it's like you meet the founder and they're passionate and they've got what it takes, or there's a great story or the product has a niche, then I think you can build on that. And that's the challenge of helping a brand be successful. But if it's like everything just it's the wrong mentality there, it's just about selling products, not like, and I take that, I have to be careful there. Retail, like natural retail, is more than retail, it is more than just selling products. At the end of the day, we're all trying to do that. But, we're in the industry of good, of better for you, of impacting people. And I think if a brand doesn't have any anything there, like there's no story to hold on to that is going to be meaningful to a customer, then I think, okay, that's that's a transactional relationship, and I think that's where I would probably push back.
We got one from Sarah, who is also in North Carolina. Good to see you, Sarah. How do you set expectations with newer brands who expect you to secure sales quickly? And I'm curious how you answer. So, Jonathan, I'm a brand, and I say, Jonathan, I want to hire Advantage. When can I expect results? What's the answer to that question? And then, of course, Sarah's question as well.
Well, you can expect for us to start working on it immediately. You know, we all can hedge our bets, or we can make our percentages better, but again, I don't control it anymore. When I was a retailer, I could control whether we brought your product in or not. I think you also have to be careful on what does success look like for you, because if you think that you're going to get into Sprouts and Whole Foods and everything right off the bat, my question to you is, what if it doesn't go well? Are you prepared? Are you ready to, like, I'm not prepared to be a part of putting you out of business. And so I think you have to really understand, like, what is the model of growth. And that's where, like, independents are phenomenal, right? That's where you should really get a true start in cutting your teeth and in delivering the product to the store yourself if it's within your area, talking to the managers, building that success up slowly so that on the back end you're prepared. Like, do you have a sales team? Do you have the funding? If you do get into a big retailer, can you manufacture the product in time? What happens if it sells well? Then you're out of stock. Then you just lost your opportunity. So I think you have to really establish what success looks like and the timing, because that can still be fast. But if you go hot and heavy right out from the gate and you think you're going to get into 500 stores with an account, you better have some good backing and experience. And this better not be your first run at this. Because there are brands that they've got a great team. They've been at growing companies before. They know the cost of it and they're ready. And then there's brands that the person created an amazing product. And that's all they know. And that's fine. That's what we're here for. But you have to set that expectation of, like, small steps are still successful and it will ramp up pretty quick. Don't worry. But if it goes too fast, again, you may not be prepared. And I don't want to be a part of, let's say it gets in and then it doesn't sell in 6 months, that product's discontinued and you're taking it back. What are you going to do then?
Yeah. That's something we can clip for sure.
Yeah, we've got one more, Gavin. I think we're close. Well, yeah, we're close to time. But Jeff with Brandardica, what weight or consideration is placed on social proof or community or even D2C sales and taking on a new brand for sale into retail? And I think it's good, whether you put on your Fresh Thyme hat there or you put on your broker hat, as far as you're presenting a brand that has D2C data. How do you frame that up, and or putting on your Fresh Thyme hat? Okay, I've been successful here. How do you look at that? Is it beneficial?
Yeah, I think you're already proving that you've got a customer. And so if you're saying, hey, and for a lot of brands, it doesn't make sense, quite honestly, to go straight to retail these days. You can do a lot online, Amazon, whatever, build your customer base. Be careful on your pricing though, because if you go too hot there, the expectations be similar in retail, and you got to make sure your margins built for that. But I would say, like, yeah, you've gotten some proof in the concept that you got a customer. And now if I'm a retailer and you have X amount of customers that you can kind of geo-target, or kind of their region, then it's like, hey, for each one of your stores, I've got 12 new customers that aren't shopping your store, potentially, and are now going to come and find my product there. So no retailer's going to, push that off and say you're going to bring me new customers. And then the social aspect of it, right? Brands these days, like social media, TikTok is the new Dr. Oz. So things happen so quickly. And that's one way that you can really propel your brand, is if you got a smart social media strategy behind that. Now, you can't predict everything, but with some good planning, some strategy, and a little bit of luck, that can completely change the trajectory of your brand.
So many outlets today. Again, just going back to my 2015 stint with Fresh Thyme, and then more recently with Earth Fair, like even like the 2020 2021, like TikTok was kind of just getting off the ground a little bit, but not super explosive. But now it's explosive. Like you can have one viral video go crazy and do millions of dollars over the course of weeks or days, even launching a product on there, or just having an influencer uh, you know,
Yeah.
try a product. There's a lot of those scenarios out there. Um, we are at time, but I definitely did want to ask this. Like, what was the vibe of the office at Fresh Time when I would always post like Wednesday night, like those rare steaks?
You were missed, Gavin. You were missed.
Dude, I going back to that time, there's a couple things that I have thoughts on, but that was such a fun time.
No,
Um,
it was the Wild West. It was us against the world. It was, you can't. The thing is like towards the end of my time at Fresh Time, we always talk about, and I was guilty of it all the time, of like, oh, we did this back in the day, but it's like you can never go back.
yeah.
Like everything evolves and changes, and like there's a lot of things that there's no an established company you would never do. Like Friday happy hours in the office. You don't do that. But
Yeah.
at that time, it was something, was fun. It was team building. But no, it was, everyone had unique personalities, and you, Gavin, you were like super young. I remember when Simon brought you over,
27.
and yeah. And like, you've evolved and changed so much. I'm so proud of you. Like, cause, we created rules at trade shows, based off of, Gavin, of things that you could no longer do, which you wouldn't think you'd have to say. But we had to establish some bylaws, to see where you've grown today, and a father and a husband and everything like that. Like, yeah, I'm super proud of you, dude. You're not the same guy that left the shoes on your last day at the office.
Funny story on that. I actually forgot those on accident. I didn't leave those on purpose, but it made for a good story, I guess,
It
afterwards.
was a good story. Yeah.
Love it.
No, I appreciate that. And like, that was the Wild West, like it was a really, that whole office was a pretty fun group
Oh, yeah.
altogether. I
You were
know
a
I was
family.
I always remember I was really envious of you, Simon, and Jeff, because we just heard those stories. And like I think I got there at 14 stores, and you guys already had like this war chest of openings, and then I know I opened, I want to say like 20 something that I flew out for the triple grand opening, right? Like who the
Oh.
hell? I
Why
don't
would you
know.
do that? Why would you do it
Why
twice?
did we do that? Triple grand opening on a day. I think I was out there a solid 2.5 weeks or something. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But just, again, I think for me personally, I grew so much because as much um, as much of different leaders that you and Simon were, I did learn so much from both of you guys at the same time. Some things to do and some things not to do. But I took those with me
Yeah.
from where I am today, and it did help me a lot. And even with Chris, like, I didn't interact with Chris on the daily or anything like that, but the way that he led, now I'm not going to be the same leader he is, but there's things that I took away from him too, because he stood for what he stood for. And I could get down with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, you're going to learn from all the different leaders, and not even just your own leaders, but people around you. And, you just see what aligns with your, like, what's meaningful to you, right? And who you are. And then just go lead that way, and don't be afraid of being wrong, or not
You're
good
going to be
enough.
wrong.
You're gonna, yeah, I'm wrong so much, dude. It's like, but you know what? Someone has to make a decision. And if it's wrong, you just fix it. It's not the end of the world. You learn from it and you move on. But as a person that never really thought of themselves as a leader or wanting to be a leader, I've really enjoyed the growth, and I've enjoyed the being scared, of a lot of change, and then finally getting to a point to where you're comfortable with change. And that's, Pete Hines had a lot of impact on me there. And so then you get to an age, and I'm 44, you start getting older, everything hurts a little bit more, but you get a lot more confident in your abilities and who you are. And so
Yeah.
that's
And I think
yeah.
and I think the way you think about it too, like I know when I was at Earth Fair, that's kind of like when I had to do the stuff, had to lead. And it's like, okay, you can just make decisions, which are probably not going to be good, or you can think about making those decisions and like figure out what your worst case scenario is going to be, what your best case scenario is going to be, figure out all the variables that are in between those two scenarios and try to make the best decision possible and know what the likely outcome is going to be. And if the likely outcome's not going to be good, don't make that decision or make another decision to impact the decision so it doesn't have a negative uh, impact on the final thing. Um, yeah, so that's awesome. Appreciate this conversation. Jonathan, I love you and I always have, always will. And I look forward to seeing you the next time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. This is a lot of fun. And wait, this is the longest conversation we've got to have because I always knew your name, and then we finally got to kind of meet. And I can't wait to connect with you more because I'm sure there's so many connections that we have and just similar experiences too.
Definitely.
And same haircut too.
Yeah, exactly. Just a couple more grays on mine, but no, it's been a pleasure, and for sure, I'm sure we'll be seeing each other at some trade shows coming up. So I look forward to that, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Everybody, thanks for joining in again. If you haven't already, do the stuff, right? The thumbs up, the 5 stars, the subscribe, all that stuff. Do that on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Gavin, anything else before we shut her down?
Now
Great.
let's shut it down.
All right,
Have a great
everybody.
weekend. Thank you, everybody.
We'll see you next time. Thanks.
See you guys.